Good morning, everyone, and welcome for our Agricultural Affairs Committee meeting this morning, September 7. And I know that in the last 3 days, hopefully the kids went back to school and life is going back to normal. And I know we sent you some extra nice heat to finish the summer with it. So we appreciate you coming here on a hot day, and for the people who join us online, welcome and thank you very much for joining us this morning. I would like to begin by acknowledging that this meeting is being held on an unceded Anishinaabe-Algonquin territory. The people of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. I will ask our committee coordinator to have a roll call, please.
Councillor Brown.
Here.
Councillor Kipps.
Here.
Councillor Luloff.
Present.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Aye.
And Chair Drews, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as item 4.3 on today's agenda. For the item this mentioned, only who made oral submission today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if Council does not adopt an amendment within the 90 days of receipt of the application for zoning bylaw amendment and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council on September 13, 2023, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. Number 2 on our agenda this morning, any declaration of interest? Seeing none, thank you. Number 3, confirmation of ERAC minutes 5, Thursday, July 6, 2023. Can confirm?
Confirmed.
Okay, thank you. 4.1, we have an omnibus official plan amendment, and we do have a 2 motion on that, on the report. Before we discuss the report and read the recommendation, so I'll actually read the recommendation. The Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend Council 1, approve and adopt official plan amendment 5, a series of technical amendment of the official plan as presented in document 1 and 2, and 2, approve the updates to the tree protection bylaw 2023-340 to extend protections to privately owned trees on all lands located east of Waters Road that were approved by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing in the future neighborhood overlay. So we have 2 motions. One is by Councillor Luloff and one by Councillor Brown. We also have a delegation. But before we move to the delegation, we'll probably read the motion just so to see if there's satisfaction by the delegates. So we know what we are, because we did some amendment to the CARP airport. So I'll start with Councillor Luloff to read his motion. Please, Councillor Luloff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Whereas the official plan approved in 2022, including the Village of Greeley secondary plan with an area-specific policy intending to permit severances for minimum lot sizes that are consistent with the past severances on lots fronting on both Cedar Acres Drive and Stanmore Street, and whereas the Village of Greeley secondary plan section 5 area-specific policies, policy 1 reads, in order to recognize local context on lots with frontage on both Cedar Acres Drive and Stanmore Street, the city may permit new lots for residential purposes on private services. The new lots may not be less than 0.2 hectares in size. Applications must demonstrate that adequate private services can be established and maintained in the long term, and that there is technical evidence that cumulative effects will not create an adverse effect to public health or the environment. Now, whereas prior to the 2022 official plan, with the exception of 6 lots, properties with the same frontage along Cedar Avenue Drive and Stanmore Street were severed, creating new lots with slightly less than 0.2 hectares. And whereas the remaining 6 lots are between 0.36 and 0.38 hectares in size, requiring potential new lot creation through the consent to sever to be at least 0.18 hectares in size. Therefore, be it resolved that the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that Council approve an amendment to the Village of Greeley Secondary Plan, Section 5, Policy 1, by replacing 0.2 hectares with 0.18 hectares as the potential minimum permissible lot size to align with other property sizes in the area. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Committee.
And thank you very much for moving this technical amendment. And we have clarified that through the motion, and we can vote on that motion separately. We have any have a question or anything? Can we carry that motion?
Carried.
Carried, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ruloff. Next motion, it's moved by Councillor Brown concerning the CARP airport. So Councillor Brown. F4.1.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas at the Planning Committee meeting of February 27th, 2023, City Planning staff were directed to prepare a series of omnibus reports relating to different amendment categories. And whereas since the February 27th, 2023 Planning Committee meeting, staff have identified amendments attached as Document 1, citywide and urban amendments, and Document 2, rural amendments. Therefore, be it resolved that with respect to Report ACS 2023 PI EDP 0015, City Council approve the amendments to Document 2 as set out in Annex 1 attached to this motion, held on file with the City Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. And I know before we move forward with this, we have a delegation. Mr. Winters is online. Mr. Winters, we have also staff to answer any question. I have Robin in the gallery here and Ben. Thank you very much for being here with us this morning. So, Mr. Winters, are you happy with the motion, or do you like to, you can go ahead with your delegation?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I've read the motion and I'm just here to monitor to make sure that it's passed. That's it, and that's all. So thank you very much for your time. I'm happy with the motion as drafted.
Thank you very much. I just want to give you the opportunity, and we appreciate you being here with us this morning. Is that motion carried?
Carried.
And can we carry the whole report
Carried.
as amendment?
Carried.
Thank you. Perfect. So move to 4. Thank you very much, Robin and Ben. We move to another 4.2, rural community building grant, and we have a motion on this. The Agricultural Affairs Committee approved the recommendation on the rural community building grant program application as detailed on document 1. And I will ask Councillor, we have a staff here, Rosa and Dave Wise online if we have any question, but I'll ask Councillor Brown to move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. And we have had time to see this. So if it's the will of the committee, I'll just read the therefore be it resolved.
Yes, please.
Therefore, be it resolved that notwithstanding paragraph 7, reporting requirements under the contribution agreement for the 2023 Rural Community Building Grant Program, the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee approve an exemption for the application for the Metcalfe Loops Committee of the MCA, allowing for their application in the amount of $6,047.25 to be included within the 2023 Q3 funding envelope, provided that A, all necessary documentation is provided to the Rural Affairs Office following the completion of the work related to the prior application, and B, that all necessary documentation provided to the Rural Affairs Office is accurate and to their satisfaction.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any question concerning the motion? Just to clarify, there is a 2 application from the Metcalfe Community Association. There is delay on the signage because they're both the application is with our city staff, and the signage department is very busy, and the material were back ordered, and we need to fulfill those application. So we're just giving them enough time so they don't have to wait till December to go ahead with their next application. If as of Councillor Brown, in section A and B, they provided the proper paperwork, so we can move forward. So can any question on the motion? Can we carry it?
Carried.
Thank you. And carry the whole report as amendment?
Carried.
Thank you very much. We have 4.3 zoning amendment, 147 Longstaff Drive, and anomaly lands, and those are just kind of, we already passed this file in the last era. These are just some, as the staff told us, there will be some kind of clarification and follow-up report, that's what we're doing right now. There is no presentation, no delegation, no correspondence, and we have our staff online. If there is a question, but straightforward, we have Mr. Adam Brown and Sarah's also on here. So if we have any question, report recommendation 1, the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committees recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-50 for part 147 Longstaff Drive as shown on document 1 to permit a portion of a residential subdivision as detailed in the document 2. And 2, the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report be included as part of brief explanation in a summary of written and oral public submissions to be prepared by the Office of the City Clerk and submitted to Council in a report titled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of September 13, 2023, subject to submissions received between the application of this report and the time of Council decision. Any question? Can we carry that report?
Carried.
Thank you very much. We have no in-camera item, and there will, and number 6, if I didn't miss anything so far, I'll ask Kelly, we're good so far. We will move to open session, Mike. We have 2 delegations this morning. We have Mr. Ken Holmes and we have Bruce Fanjoy from Matic Village and Community Association, and you got 5 minutes. And I know that we received presentation. We have presentation ready for. Oh, Mr. Holmes, please join us here. It's so nice to see you again. And you're very familiar with this gallery and with the rules. So get yourself comfortable and we'll give you your 5 minutes. And you can introduce your guest too if you want.
Okay, we're ready.
Can you bring the mic down, please, Mr. Yeah, that's good.
Here we go.
So we can hear you.
Okay, next slide, please. Good morning, Mr. Chair. We're here today representing the Rural Transportation Solutions Group, basically at the request of your committee that asked us to keep you up to date on our survey. I'm assisted today by my colleague Susan Coravilla, who will be here to help with questions and discussions in particular. Survey number 3, we started in March of this year to better define the rural transportation needs. We've received 356 responses in English and French. Participants have been from all 5 rural wards, and we've heard from residents of 25 villages. This morning, we will highlight the patterns of rural transportation, who would benefit from more transportation options, and what are some of the impediments to moving forward. Next slide, please. No, back one, sorry. Participation in the survey has been primarily by adults and seniors, with adults comprising 70%. Youth and young adult transportation needs can differ significantly from the other populations, and they are underrepresented in the survey. It's worth noting that the National Capital Region Origin Destination Study does not survey the youth needs. We're working to gain more input on the youth front with the assistance of the Rural Ottawa Youth Mental Health Collective. You may recall from an earlier presentation that rural youth identify the lack of transportation as their number 2 problem. Lack of transportation for youth and young adults can have a long-term impact on the rural communities through a phenomenon that the academics call thinning out. When the youth find that they have not the transportation opportunities to get into the city, they move into the urban area for education and employment. And that move is often permanent. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Survey number 3 shows that more than 60% of rural residents either agree or strongly agree that the rural area would benefit from more transportation options. This level of support has been consistent throughout our surveys and the public consultations. Next slide. Our findings are similar to the ongoing origin destination study. Survey indicates the top 4 purposes for travel are shopping, work, recreation, and healthcare. And the top 4 destinations are outside the ward, to the nearest village, downtown, and within the ward. Next slide, please. This graph shows the distribution of the time of travel. Green is outgoing from the rural area, and blue is returning home. The pattern is similar again to the origin destination surveys. Activity level during the daytime would likely be higher if we had more participation in the survey by youth. The data demonstrates the significant needs for transportation throughout the day. Next slide, please. About 25% of those surveyed stated that they used OC Transpo service to some extent. Other surveys have suggested that it is as low as 10%. But note that while less than 1/3 of the rural residents use public transit, 2/3 of our rural residents already pay taxes for public transit because they're located in rural transit area B. Next slide, please. Some 2/3 said they would use public transportation if it were available and if it were reliable. The desire to use public transportation decreases with the distance to the pickup points. There is twice the interest if the drive to a park and ride is 1 kilometer as opposed to 10 kilometers. We believe that every rural village should have a park and ride. Next slide, please. Regarding a reasonable bus fare, the chart at the upper right shows preferences for the degree of cost sharing between the rider and the general taxpayer. Some 55%, more than half, agree that the general taxpayer should bear some percentage of the transportation costs. About 25% are happy with the current formula where the share is 50-50. The bars in the chart on the left show the preferred rates for different types of trips. The dark green bars show favor towards a standard rural bus fare of up to $5. That is about 25% higher than the current bus fare. Next slide, please. In briefest of summary, what are the patterns of use of transportation? The solutions must provide transportation service throughout the day, not just during the peak hours. And additionally, the service needs to recognize the increased flow of workers to the rural area as opposed to just from the rural area. Who would benefit? The breadth of the beneficiaries of improved transportation in the rural area is quite well identified in our existing rural equity and inclusion lenses. That includes the youth, the adults, older adults, and the increasing diversity of the nature of the residents that are living in the rural area. What are the impediments to rural transportation improvements? The most significant improvements or impediments are the lack of vision and direction. Next slide, please. How can the rural councillors assist rural transportation solutions in their studies and recommendations? First area with respect to the long-term plans. The long-term plans are going to play an increasingly important part as the city moves forward. In the previous open mic presentation, we recommended the wording in the transportation master transportation plan be as indicated here in the blue slide. That's not yet happened. The list of policies in the transportation master plan is still open for tweaking. Rural councillors need to send such a recommendation to the transportation master plan. The OC Transpo 5-year roadmap. OC Transpo was working on a plan to improve service and efficiencies. This review, however, appears to be limited to considering only the current routes. I believe that rural councillors should request that their plan include specifically the rural transportation routes. Next slide, please. In September of 2002, the Transportation Committee recommended bus service to 18 rural villages. 20 years later, half of those recommended 18 villages still do not have bus service. We've assembled outlines of that original 2002 proposal with updates from the assistance of the transportation staff, and we intend to send them to all the rural councillors and to ask each rural councillor specifically whether the proposals that were made in 2002 but not implemented are still valid. That concludes my presentation. Next slide, please. That's the quick summary of how we can help. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. And you went way over the 5 minutes, but because the will of the committee, and we ask you to come back, and we appreciate the work that you do with your group and your team. Of course, as a volunteer in the community, we appreciate the work you've done, and we highlight that very highly. So that's why we gave you extra time. I'm going to see there's questions around here. I saw Councillor Kelly's hand up.
Chair, Councillor Kelly had to depart the meeting, but he sent a question to me by text.
Perfect. So go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holmes. We haven't met formally, but I'm David Brown. I represent the area just south of you. Councillor Kelly apologizes that he couldn't attend in person and stick around to ask the question, but he has asked if I pose this directly to you. Mr. Holmes, have you spoken to rural businesses and their need for transportation to have employees come out to the rural area, as you spoke about, instead of just going into urban Ottawa? And he specifically lists the Carp Road corridor businesses. Would these be, I guess, a segment of the business population that would benefit from enhanced rural service or rural service if they currently lack it?
Yes, I've worked with the Carp Road corridor BIA basically over the last 3+ years when we started some of the earlier work on rural transportation, and they certainly are very vocal in the need to get workers out to the rural area, and one of the biggest impediments is that they don't have the transportation. The proposal that the BIA has been making is that there be an extension of the service from the Stittsville area to get prospective workers out to that BIA. We've specifically mentioned that in parts of our study, and it's not unique to the Carp Road corridor BIA. It's common to other BIAs and also to the rural area. We've heard examples where small farmers were very interested in getting youth out into the rural area to work during the summer, but the youth simply can't get out there. So that is a problem. And like I say, one of the main points that we've made in the major routes, the peak hour routes, is that we've got to ensure that we're looking at the transportation in both directions. That has not been characteristic of the current design.
Thank you very much. No further questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. And I see no other question. I appreciate the work and thank you very much for presenting to us, and we'll keep working with you and your group. Thank you, Mr. Holmes, and you're welcome to be here with us in the committee this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next open mic session, we have nice visitors. I see Bruce Funjoy from Village Community Association, and Grace also, she's here with us this morning. I haven't seen her in a long time. She's very familiar with this gallery. She's the former president of the Manatic Community Association. It's so nice to see both of you here this morning, and welcome back. And the community is happy to hear from you. You have a great counselor who support and work with you closely. So I'll give you, you have 5 minutes for a presentation. And if we need to extend the time, there is no problem also. So feel free to take your time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, George, for that introduction. I'm basically here to introduce Bruce, who's been doing a lot of work on the second round of our transportation or our truck study. Some of you may remember the last time we did this, which would have been 2021. So we've got an update we wanted to share with the members. Okay, push the mic.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, for your assistance with this, and thank you, Councillor Derouz, and also to Councillor Kitts and Councillor Luloff, who are with us for this presentation. We did, first of all, this is not just a Manatic issue. This is an issue that affects the entire south area of the city. Because the trucks that come through Manatic also travel through other populated rural areas of the city. So we want to stress that, as well as it affects not just the residents but also visitors to Manatic and businesses in Manatic. We undertook a study of truck traffic. We wanted to understand what was happening in Manatic, particularly on Bridge Street, where there's the river crossing, but it also ties in with Manatic, Maine as well. I'm sure most people here are quite familiar with where that is, but I'll just say that it's right in the heart of a village in South Ottawa. The truck study happened over 2 weeks in August. This is very fresh data. It was done in 2 locations. One at Bridge in Maine, where we did 50 hours, 10 hours per day from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. on each weekday. So we got 5 days and got a very good pattern of what's happening. We also did the same study at Vimy because we wanted a comparable, and Vimy is comparable just because it's what has been used in the past. It's a purpose-built bridge for larger volumes and larger types of vehicles, but it's not the only crossing that is available. Hunt Club is also available. 417. We would just like we understand that trucks need to get across our city. We'd like routes to be planned to minimize potential conflict with the residents. Our vision at the MVCA is zero fatalities and zero life-changing injuries on our streets. That's what we're striving for. I think that's well within the possibility with some changes. We have more than in the 10-hour stretch between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. we were counting almost 1,000 heavy trucks. Now this doesn't include any civic vehicles. It doesn't include buses or garbage trucks. These are the largest of trucks, often tandem vehicles. And so when the traffic starts, as Grace would know because she lives very nearby the intersection, the truck traffic starts well before 7 a.m. and really doesn't stop. So those are very big numbers. Over one big truck every minute. 7% of those trucks climb up onto the sidewalk. That is a startling figure that reveals a systemic problem, not merely an occasional bad driver. And it just comes down to the trucks are too large for the space that they're trying to occupy. The Bridge Street is a 2-lane community street, as compared to Vimy, which has six lanes. We also have higher amounts of pedestrians and cyclists, and so that potential for conflict between vulnerable road users and invulnerable road users is impossible to ignore. Next slide. In our study, we found that in the 10-hour period, almost 1,000. It was precisely 967 heavy trucks. And this, I should also clarify, this is not local truck traffic. So we trucks that were smaller and landscapers and such. We purposely excluded them. Every village needs deliveries. So these are the heaviest trucks. 967 went through Manotick, and 507 went across Vimy. So that's roughly that might be my defibrillator, is it?
Well, it could be. I'm trying to do it there.
Okay.
Sorry.
So what we have is a situation where almost 2 times the heavy traffic is squeezing through an area 1/3 the size, and where it passes between 2 retirement homes. Often we have seniors who have relationships across the road, and they're very vulnerable. It passes through a community safety zone in front of an elementary school, and it's just exceptionally well designed for something to go horribly wrong. And we're trying to get ahead of that, and that's why we're here. Next slide, please. So this is a comparison of the 2 sites. So you can see on the left is Bridge and Main, much tighter road space compared to Vimy on the right, which is more properly designed for this heavy traffic. Vimy has much less pedestrian traffic as well. It's not really a location where pedestrians go, whereas pedestrians and cyclists at Bridge and Main are there every day. Next slide, please. So here's a routine event in Manotick. This is a large truck. I remember this moment. It was a tandem vehicle, so a tandem tanker, and it climbed the sidewalk. This happens approximately 70 times per day in the daylight hours. This woman, you can't see it here, but this woman had to step back out of the way as this truck was crossing. It's dangerous. It's fundamentally dangerous. The truck could hit someone, particularly a senior, and not even know it. So this is a long-standing issue, and we're hoping to have cooperation and support from council to address it. Next slide, please. So one proposal that's on the table is a truck study focused on South Ottawa. And we are in support of that. We think that would be informative and beneficial for all South Ottawa residents. We think we know there are things that can happen in the meantime. So we don't want a truck study to delay action on some simple things that we can do to make this area safer. It needs to be a priority in the budget, and I understand that that the budget process is underway right now. Some things will cost, some will require some funding, and that's money well spent. And so we would ask for support in the budget, the setting of priorities. We're looking for a reclassification of the streets in the core of Manotick to be for local truck traffic only. There's we think that that's entirely possible, and it would in fact be impossible to avoid trucks climbing sidewalks with the status quo. So we're working on that. We're working on that with the councillors, and we're hoping for support in that. We're looking for a speed camera in the community safety zone on Bridge Street. That will help to calm traffic there. We had another collision this past week. I reached out to community hoping to find some details. I didn't get details, but I think it was multiple vehicles involved. But someone wrote me back and told me another story. I'll tell you about another collision, and it changed the local families' lives forever. So we have the ability to change that moving forward, and that's what we're trying to do. There are 86,400 seconds in a day, and every tragedy happens in one of those seconds. Precisely 0 seconds are dedicated to our most vulnerable users at that intersection, that being pedestrians and cyclists. So we observed right now. There's of course vehicles and trucks can turn right on green. Of course, they also have a green arrow. But when the light turns red, they have a right turn on red, and we observed it's normal for vehicle traffic not to stop, and frequently they take the red right turn at speed, and that's a well-known way for people to get hurt. So we want to create some time that's dedicated to vulnerable users. Advanced pedestrian and cycle signals. I'd like to thank the city for installing an advanced pedestrian light at Van Vliet. The community recognizes that's good, and that's made that intersection safer. We'd like that to go across Bridge Street, and also at River Road and Bridge Street, we have there's an issue north and south, I believe, where visibility is a problem for left turning traffic, and that was raised with the community as requiring change. So that's everything that I'd like to say, and we'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Bruce. And the reason we gave you extra time, because we understand as a rural councillor the challenges we have on our road, and we appreciate the work that Manotick Village Community Association has been doing. I know this has been a long time conversation, and I know this is a lot. So it's very complex file, and you know that, and the previous member, the executive, we work collectively on it since I got elected, and I know this historical issue, and I know that you have a great counselor that he's been working with the community association since he also got elected. So I'm not gonna hog all the time on the question. I know I'm well aware of the file and the work you've been doing. We appreciate it, and thank you very much for you and your executive board and the community member also. This is not an easy subject, and this is not an easy topic to talk about. But I want to highlight and appreciate all the work you guys been doing. I'm going to ask, I know we have Councillor Kitt have questions, and I'll let Councillor Brown to the end, so if that's okay with you. Go ahead, Councillor Kitt.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I know you said that it's not just a Manotick issue. I'm wondering if you have engaged at all with other community associations in other rural villages to hear sort of what they're saying about truck traffic. Because my old configuration, my ward had 5 rural villages. Now I'm down to 2, but in every single one, I feel like truck traffic has been brought up as a significant issue. Typically, the trucks will pass right through the heart of the village. So I'm just wondering if you've had any engagement with other villages around the city.
Yes, I was delighted when I found out that Ken Holmes was going to be presenting here this morning as well, because I have been engaging with the rural transportation solutions, and truck traffic does heavy truck traffic does come up, and I understand that it's an issue wherever it happens. I think what sets the issue apart in Manotick is the sheer volume. I don't think any other community in the southern part of the city is dealing with 1,000 heavy trucks during daylight hours on a street that they can't stay on, and they have to climb the sidewalk. So I think this is an extraordinary issue. That requires a solution, but we don't want anyone to get hurt anywhere.
Yeah.
And
No.
I can add to that. We did have previously conversations before Bruce's time with the other communication in Metcalfe and in Greeley as well. Certainly some of these trucks are going through Greeley along the Mitch Owens, and certainly Metcalfe is also experiencing an increase in heavy truck traffic going through that village. So I know they've been working with Councillor DeRuse on finding some solutions to that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is more of something for perhaps me to take back to staff, but I am wondering what the traffic counts are like in other villages. I see Councillor Lulof's hands up. Cumberland Village is close to the ferry, so it has a significant volume of truck traffic. So perhaps, a strategy for rural villages is needed holistically, but I really appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kidd. Councillor Lulof.
Yeah, Councillor Kitts is right. Cumberland Village in the East End experiences a massive amount of truck traffic at all hours of the day because of its proximity to the ferry. It's really the only crossing other than, say, Hawkesbury in the East End where these heavy trucks can come by. I would recommend that we take a broad approach to this. And if you'd like, you can reach out. You can reach out to my office. We'd be glad to get you in touch with the Cumberland Community Association. Their incredible president, Todd Smith, I'm sure would be very pleased to chat and collaborate with you. I think that we can all work together on a solution to this. I do particularly like your idea of a southern route. I think for a very long time prior to amalgamation, there's quite a bit of talk about a southern route around the city, and the region would always shoot it down. There's renewed talks of this given the exponential growth happening on the edges of our communities right now, especially in the east. I think that Councillor Kitts has the unique distinction of having the fastest growing ward in the city. I think that we can all work together to solve this problem. Really, really appreciate you coming and speaking about this, putting a fine point on it. I'd be interested to do the same sort of study at the corner of Old Montreal Road and Cameron, and then Old Montreal Road at Dunning, where you have these sort of hairpin 90-degree turns that you're talking about here at Bridge Street. I know the intersection really well. You're right to point out that we probably all know it. Manotick Village is gorgeous. We all love to visit. At the same time, there are quite a few people that have to live there every single day and experience this daily. So really, really appreciate you coming out today. I think that there's a lot of work that we can do together to make all of our rural villages safer. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ruloff. Councilor Brown.
Thank you very much, and thank you to my colleagues for posing those questions. And certainly, as the chair has indicated, the MVCA has always been a leader on this issue and has put in significant time and effort multiple times to gather the data that's required. And I think that really says something about the community association. You don't just bring an issue, you also try to bring the data and then potential solutions, and that's always appreciated. Fantastic advocates for the village of Manotick, and very pleased to have been working with each and every one of you over the past few months. Recognizing that many of these specific questions I rose at the Transportation Committee, and we're awaiting the response from staff, and I know you're following along with that. Specifically though, I'd like to make it clear, and I'm hoping that either Grace or Bruce, you can respond. Is it the goal of the MVCA to completely eliminate all truck traffic in the village?
No, it's not. Trucks provide an important service to every community. So we absolutely, any truck that has a purpose to be in Manotick, in the core of the village, in order to build houses or deliver supplies to our businesses, or to move residents. Those are absolutely welcome. And this is specifically about through truck traffic. In our study, we found that most of the traffic was heading in one of two directions. It was Bridge Street westbound, turning north on Manotick Main, or Manotick southbound, Manotick Main southbound, turning east on Bridge Street. Both of those directions are indicative and consistent with through truck traffic rather than local deliveries. But we welcome local truck traffic. It's part of a vibrant community in Manotick, and but it's the through truck traffic which is the vast majority of the volume, and that's the problem.
Oh, thank you.
And I just wanted to add to that. I think the other point is that there's probably better ways to get those trucks moving across the city. I think when the original truck route was established, they were looking at finding ways that were most efficient. And at the moment, it appears that Mitch Owens and Bridge Street seems to be the most efficient because of the backlogs on Hunt Club, the inability to access Earl Armstrong Strandherd easily for a lot of trucks. So we recognize that they face some challenges, and for them, time is money. So they're looking for the quickest way to get across the city in the south end. And at the moment, that seems to be through the village, which is not ideal. I'm sure most of them are very unhappy with having to navigate that very tight intersection, particularly some of the wide loads and extra long loads as well.
No, thank you. And you've answered the next question that I was going to ask, which was, why do you think they're going through the village? And obviously time is money and convenience. And we've heard that from truck drivers and the companies that employ them. And I guess my last question to you, and then I have just one comment after, Chair. Would the MVCA and the community support a time of day restriction to help lessen that burden during those daylight hours? Because one thing that you included in your presentation, Bruce, was that you started counting truck traffic from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you saw the data that you were able to collect, which means on both sides of those times, before you started and after you finished, there's theoretically more trucks still going through the village. So
yes.
Although it's fantastic data and 10 hours a day over 5 weekdays to get the most accurate sample possible, there are still additional trucks that are unaccounted for through the MVCA study. So would a time of day or time of use restriction be beneficial to the village?
Yes, that would be beneficial. I think, as you attack a big complex problem like that, there are some big things that you can do. And we need to work on those, but we we also can chip away at the problem, and those are things that are easier to do sooner. And while things like a new ring road will help. The fact is that those types of solutions are well down into the future, and we're looking for something that makes the community safer for the children at Manatee Public School, not their children. So I think an overnight time of use restriction would certainly help people sleep at night. We've got the seniors on both sides. I think that would be beneficial. So thank you. That's an excellent point.
Thank you very much. And I would say, Chair, that Mayor Sutcliffe came out 2 weeks ago and met directly with the community association. We stood at the corner of Bridge and Main so the mayor could see firsthand. And I think it was a very productive meeting that we had with the mayor. Also, I believe it was the first time since amalgamation that a mayor of the city of Ottawa was out to the village to undertake that work firsthand. So I do appreciate the time that the MVCA took to meet with the mayor and express our concerns as a community directly. But beyond that, Chair, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, and I know for your continuing effort on working on the solution, and thank you again for the Manotick Village Community Association. On behalf of my resident that they live half of in Manotick and my Manotick side, we thank you and we appreciate all the work. I do have you brought up a great point, and we keep talking about ring road, and the ring road is actually, if you look at the solution, it will be, and back in the days that was part of the solution when we built our Armstrong, and those are components. They were supposed to connect 417 to the 416, and I'm hoping this council, and I know it's been very strongly recommended, and we've been talking to our MPP to making sure, because it costs a lot of dollars and there are very expensive project, and I'm hoping I know that Councilor Brown and I will keep talking about project like that, and hopefully we can with the work that the MVCA and the numbers, and of course, because that's can eliminate not only issues in Manotick, again, like Grace mentioned, Metcalf, like the dynamic and the demographic in our villages is changing, and truck are very important element in our life, but also there is some of elimination we can really make it to lesser, to make it better to the community, more safer. Those are the very hard work, and those are very long conversation, but thank you very much, both of you, for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Here, Mr. Chair.
So thank you very much for all delegation today. This is all for our open mic, and I like to highlight and mention Agricultural Affairs Committee is the only committee have that those open mic session, which is we enjoy them because we can be able to talk and communicate with our community associations and the volunteer in our community to bring issues specifically for rural area. And I encourage all our listeners that online or our community to keep the hard work and to let you know that this is your sounding board here. You can come here, welcome, and we can listen to you. We give you the time, so you have the audience of all the rural council in front of you. Our number 7, notice of motions for consideration at subsequent meeting. We don't have any. Number 8, we have inquiries, and I think Councillor Brown have 2 of them. So go ahead, Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just by happenstance, I have an inquiry for staff on rural transit. So Mr. Holmes, you've really set the stage for me today. I'll just read it out here, Chair, and I'll forward it to the coordinator after to disseminate to city staff. It says here, given that transit staff are currently undergoing a route review to optimize Ottawa's transit system, would staff and transit services or legal services be able to provide information for the following questions? Number 1, through the route review, can staff advise as to whether private services can be leveraged to offer expanded transit options within the rural area where OC Transpo is currently operating or where no OC Transpo service exists? And number 2, can staff advise as to what provincial legislation or municipal bylaws would need to be amended to permit private services to operate within the City of Ottawa to offer parallel service or to replace OC Transpo Service as the primary service provider throughout the rural area to better reflect the realities of living in rural Ottawa? And my second inquiry, Chair. It's for legal services, and I did give legal services a heads up that this was coming. Over the past several months, residents, landowners, applicants, and their representatives have been contacting my office and the office of my colleagues, inquiring about the status of their applications that are working their way through the legal department within the city. Residents have spoken about applications taking months to work through the city's legal department or external legal counsel that has been retained by applicants who have indicated that what used to take the city a matter of weeks is now taking months or close to a year to process. Residents have shared stories about losing sales of property due to the delays caused by the City of Ottawa and the lack of communication about progress being made on individual files being shared by staff. The situation has become so concerning that 11 legal firms circulated a letter to the mayor and members of ARAC and senior staff outlining their concerns. Therefore, can staff respond to the questions below? Number 1, what is the cause of the backlog? Number 2, how many files from infrastructure agreements, development applications, rural severances, and other cases that require oversight by the municipality are backlogged? Number 3, how long does it take for these files to work their way through the legal standard processing time prior to the pandemic compared to now? How many agreements are generated through the legal department per week? Can the city send some of these applications to an external firm or firms to expedite the processing of the backlogged files? 6, how does the legal department determine which external law firms can assist with these types of backlogs? 7, can staff outline the selection process used to retain an external law firm? 8, what are the costs of retaining an external law firm to assist with these types of backlogs? Number 9, how are these costs recovered? And number 10, do staff require the intervention of committee or council to improve the situation? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, and we appreciate your inquiry, and I'm sure you'll get an answer to that. Number 9, do we have any other business? There is none. And meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Is at 10:58, and our next ARAC meeting will be Thursday, October 5th. Hopefully we'll see you then. Thank you very much. Have a great day.